Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Agile IT Tech Talk. I'm your host, Sean Spicer. This week, I am joined by the amazing Paul Zorio, my buddy over here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul. I'm a Tier 3 support specialist over here at Agile IT and focus on the security side of our business here. So here to see Sean work his magic and help out where I can.
Paul's going to hit me if I say anything wrong. And Paul, you just recently got a new certification.
I did,
yes. Which one's this?
The MS9 or MS500, which is the Microsoft 365 Security Essentials. So more on the Microsoft 365 side of things for securing your environment, and then eventually I'll move over to the Azure side to really develop that skill as well.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about conditional access and MFA. I decided to do this after last week's session. There were a lot of questions afterwards about MFA. I've realized we haven't done a really deep dive tech talk into conditional access and MFA, so wanted to do that. There are some changes coming in February for Microsoft, so we'll probably revisit this in March or so once all of that is hammered out. Another reason I wanted to do this is I've been working on the CMMC certification that's coming out from the DoD in final draft this month, or final this month. They did not give an exact date, but they said the end of January. And what I'm doing is I'm writing a blog that aligns Microsoft 365 capabilities with the requirements within CMMC. Just to give you an idea, this is the identification and authentication matrix that is part of the CMMC version 0.7 draft. So you'll see that here at level 3, it does require multi-factor authentication, and a lot of these features are actually flowing back down into level 1 and 2. For those of you that are in other regulated industries, you might want to pay attention to this. Generally, as the DoD goes, so goes any regulated industry. So I expect this to eventually start to replace the 27001 and a lot of the other kind of salad of different types of certifications. What's different about CMMC is that it's a certification, not an attestation. So you will have to be certified by a third-party auditor in order to land government contracts. So we've been doing a lot of work and research on that, trying to stay ahead of the curve. So one thing to note is basic MFA is free for all Office 365 customers now. That happened in November of last year, but conditional access at its bare minimum requires Azure AD Premium P1, and then the advanced identity protection features that we're going to go over, like things like impossible travel, require the P2 license. So let's go ahead and start looking at stuff here. There is one other reason I wanted to talk about this today. About 3 weeks ago, this article came out on Krebs on Security. If you don't follow Brian Krebs, do it. He's great. He's just very informative, very right on the cutting edge. He knows what's going on. And if you want to stay informed about the threats in IT and in your industry, he is the man to follow. So this story was about a company called Virtual Care Provider that got hit by the Riot Ransomware, and they managed to stop it after a human noticed it spreading at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. So it was almost pure luck. A guy called the CIO. CIO said, "Go ahead, shut everything down," and that stopped the spread. So the attack wasn't as bad as it could have been, and they were in the process at the time of hardening their security. And they thought, well, we just didn't move fast enough. And this is a common problem. So Brian Krebs published an article originally about this ransomware attack. And then the CIO or CTO reached out to him and said, hey, I certainly hope you want to do a follow-up article and talk about how we recovered. And Brian Krebs said, yeah, of course. If there's lessons that I can teach my readers from it, that would be great. So we followed up, scheduled a follow-up interview, and the morning he was supposed to meet with them, he got an email from somebody claiming to be the attacker and said, hey, listen, maybe they're not talking to me, maybe they'll listen to you. Tell them that my request or my offer of reduced ransom is going to expire soon, and I need to hear from them. Well, okay, that indicates that somebody's reading the emails. Somebody is still in that new cleaned up environment they're in. So Brian Krebs reached out to Hold Security, that does dark web monitoring and investigations. And they'd been watching this attack and said that hackers had been in the system and talking about it for 14 months, that they'd used Emotet, which is usually just spread by spam. And it's a ransomware, it's a payload software. They used that to deliver the ransomware, but they'd also used a module called TrickBot that's used to harvest passwords. So when they went to the new environment, the hackers just went right along with them. If you were watching our tech talk that Miguel and I did about the Department of Homeland Security risks of migrating to the cloud, is the big risk of migrating to the cloud is that if you have been breached, and you should always assume breach, you're going to migrate those hackers with them. Some of the passwords that have been breached included password managers. So LastPass passwords have been compromised. So it's basically a keylogger. They didn't have to decrypt anything. These were not hash passwords. These were typed passwords. Direct deposit and Medicaid billing portals, online payment processing services, employee bank accounts, commercial phone, internet, power providers, just tons and tons of passwords had been breached. And when he brought this up in the follow-up interview, they immediately got off the phone citing, oh, we've got personal issues to take care of. So really, this really drives home that threat of what happens when passwords are stolen and whenever you have an attacker in your system. So today's cyberspace is a true battlefield. Attacks have morphed from that 400-pound in his bedroom to sophisticated international crime syndicates and worse, nation-state attacks, your advanced persistent threats. CMMC, which I mentioned earlier, even calls upon private industry to help work against nation-state attackers in order to meet level 4 and level 5 compliance. And while the security landscape is getting more complex and stakes are rising, a lot of companies don't have even the basic resources they need to meet their security needs. When it comes to defending against cyber attacks, you have to ask, what is your true digital estate, and how do you think about what your assets are and what you have to defend against? As I say over and over and over again, the perimeter is dead. You can't draw perimeters anymore. You can't hide behind a firewall. And that's our challenge today, is we have to look at this new way of securing identity, devices, and data. We can't just build walls anymore. And Microsoft 365 has a great set of integrated tools for that. Adding to this complexity is that there are so many solutions to choose from. Many of our customers are struggling to figure out, like, how many of the solutions do we need? What are they leaving holes and gaps? And what are the cost of those gaps? Are those gaps in between our different security softwares, are they gonna cost even more? Are they opening us to a breach? Pardon me. And how do you manage all of those solutions? So Microsoft's investments in security have been guided by 4 strategies for success. Today, we're going to be talking about identity and access management. We're going to touch a little bit on threat protection, but as well, information protection, security management. We've covered those in previous tech talks, things like cloud app security and Azure information protection. So over 82% of all cyber attacks are based on weak or compromised credentials. It is imperative to have a strategy to protect identity and control access. Identity and access needs to be addressed by keeping in mind 3 key concerns: authentication, access controls, and protection against identity attacks. The approach is to strengthen security with identity and access management, and it's a threefold approach. 1, secure authentication, and passwordless is the best. Conditional access to enable zero trust, and then identity protection, safeguard identities against current and future threats. So remember, 82% of those breaches are caused by stolen passwords. So what if we eliminate passwords altogether? Microsoft is making this a reality, and with Windows Hello, Authenticator, and FIDO security keys, the future really is passwordless. Another reason I wanted to do today's tech talk, a little bit of vanity here. Today is my first day wearing glasses. I am becoming old and going blind. So I had to reconfigure Windows Hello to recognize me now that I've got these things on my face. So Windows Hello is a tried and true passwordless authentication method. The solution offers a user-friendly experience, and it's tied to enterprise-grade security for signing into Windows. But it's not just Windows. By signing in with Hello, your user credentials are available for single sign-on to Microsoft Online Services in the same way that a PIN works on your local machine. You get that single sign-on experience to all kinds of cloud applications, such as the My Apps portal. And what's even better is it works across clouds, so you can even use it to log into things like Salesforce. So the Microsoft Authenticator app, I covered that a few weeks ago on the Secure Score sessions, is another way to sign in to an Azure AD account without a password. And this is this becomes required when you have MFA and disable legacy authentication methods. So let's see what that looks like. So Megan Bowen, you've heard me make fun of her before. She's the kind of she's the person we pick on and is responsible for all the security breaches in our previous tech talks. Here she's going to attempt to access her Office Online apps on a browser. And at the login prompt, she provides her user ID. Instead of a password prompt, she gets a notification on the Authenticator app on her phone, clicks that, and then she's going to have the challenge. So go ahead and click 62, and then challenges her for biometrics. And just like that, she's in. This is a very simple and very secure way of logging in. The old methods of retiring passwords and things like that, they've actually been proven to diminish security because that leads to people doing things like writing them down, putting them on Google spreadsheets, or reusing passwords, which is possibly the worst way to do it at all. So with passwordless authentication, you secure user credentials. Now, let's see how we can help protect access. As an organization goes through a cloud transformation, physical perimeters begin to melt away. Companies need to handle users with multiple devices, working from anywhere, using multiple apps. That zero trust, it's a security paradigm that provides a modern way to view security without that perimeter. Originally considered a buzzword, in October of last year, NIST published their own zero trust guidance with NIST 800-207. So it's not a buzzword anymore, it's a legitimate framework and something you really should consider. So Azure AD Conditional Access helps you achieve zero trust by verifying everything: user, location, app, device, and the risk associated with all of them, or the risk associated with access requests to any of your corporate resources, both on-prem and in the cloud. So based on conditions of location, apps, devices, data, and risk, you can set policies that allow or deny access, challenge for multi-factor authentication, reset passwords, or allow limited access based on risk. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. This is the Azure portal. Down here under security, we've got conditional access. So let's take a look at a conditional access policy detail for a specific app, a use case, and a set of conditions. Let's check out SharePoint. So this policy will restrict downloading assets from SharePoint Online when accessed from non-compliant devices. So you see here that it's got Office 365 selected, and this blade allows you to specify which cloud apps this conditional access policy applies to. When we take a look at conditions, so think about if-then statements for a second. In the context of conditional access, when this happens is called a condition. Then do this is called an access control. You can specify conditions based on, again, user's location, sign-in risk, device state, and platform used. Pardon me. So when they open the sessions, these are the controls. Session controls let you limit the experience within the target cloud app. By enabling app enforced restrictions, users targeted by this policy will have certain restrictions set by SharePoint Online. So let's take a look at the user experience. This is an end user who is a target of this conditional access policy and wants to go ahead and open these marketing plans. You'll notice she doesn't have options to download, print, or sync documents locally to her device. Since the device she's using isn't compliant per the conditional access policies set in the administrator, that restricts both the top menu as well as that dropdown. But that doesn't stop them from being productive. You can still go ahead and view and update SharePoint documents online, and they are protected. So in addition to 82% of attacks being caused by stolen or weak credentials, identity attacks have gone up by 300% over the last year. It's important you have measures to prevent attacks. So this is the typical attacker kill chain. It only takes 24 to 48 hours for a hacker to get access to domain admin privileges after a successful phishing attack. Microsoft's 365 solutions are integrated and comprehensive, so you're getting rid of those gaps from using multiple providers. They protect you from prominent identity attacks such as phishing with the help of Office Advanced Threat Protection and Azure Active Directory Identity Protection, preventing lateral movement with Azure ATP, limiting the number of admin accounts in your environment with Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, and finally, protecting your cloud app usage with Microsoft Cloud App Security. And I know I've been saying it, I'm gonna come back and do a presentation on Cloud App Security here in a few weeks. It is really one of my favorite tools. So let's take a look at Azure AD Identity Protection in action to demonstrate how it participates in the attacker kill chain. We'll start with a new security overview that shows at a glance the various security signals that are active and that you should be aware of in your environment. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to investigate risky behavior here. Pardon me. This shows a list of risky users. The risk level associated with the users helps triage which users to investigate first. We're going to go ahead and filter by risk state. Let's look at high risk users and then apply. So let's see, let's look at Jeff Leatherman. What a name. You'll see that the risk level is raised to high, and the session shows you that we found Jeff's credentials on the dark web. And again, the stolen credentials. And when I talked earlier about that company that was breached, the reason that Hold Security was able to know what was going on is on the dark web, there are forums and these people are sharing and selling this information. Then we've got non-session linked risk events. And you'll want to understand what the organizational wide impact of the compromise. Is it a single user or is this one among many? Here's where Azure Advanced Threat Protection can shed light. And so we click on the link that allows us to investigate with ATP. You'll see that the risk level is raised to high. Oh, this is strange. And the session shows you that we found Jeff's credentials on the dark web. Let's see. What is going on? All right, this is the brand new user identity page in Azure ATP. All the information known about Jeff's identity, whether it's information from the cloud or on-prem, is brought together on this page. Devices the user logged into, resources accessed, and all the accounts they have, and the accounts they've logged into, as well as the usual and common locations they log on to, as well as the last account, and that can help with the investigation. In this case, Jeff is going to have more risky impact on your environment than 93% of the other users in your environment because he handles finance and therefore confidential information. Let's have a look at some of the things he's done. When we review the alerts, we can see the leaked credentials we saw from Azure AD Identity Protection. Following up on the alerts timeline, we see that Jeff's leaked credentials were used for a number of abnormal activities, including a reconnaissance activity. And when an attacker compromises a user's identity in this manner, they don't stay there. They tend to move laterally. As we can see here, the attack has moved laterally to Ron Harper's profile. So what happened? Where is it? You can go ahead and click on Ron Harper. And now again, you can follow up on that alert. So the alert you need to pay attention to is the identity theft using pass the ticket attack. Jeff's identity has been used to steal Ron Harper's Carebos ticket from the machine. With this ticket, an attacker can move through the environment impersonating Ron without ever having to find his password. This investigation can clearly identify the path that the hacker adopted and map the set of identities and devices compromised, thus enabling you to arrest the hack proactively. Again, that was something that was going on in that earlier example from the Brian Krebs article. So this is just a kind of quick overview of what's enabled with conditional access and MFA. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you new to the Tech Talk, because I do see a few new names in there, the way Tech Talks are organized is I give a 15 to 30 minute demo, usually joined by a Microsoft engineer or architect or somebody from here at Agile IT. And then we go ahead and we upload these demos up to YouTube, as well as feature them on our blog in some cases. And then we shut down recording, and this becomes a open Q&A period. So for any questions that you might have throughout the demo, and that is a benefit just for Agile IT's MSP and CSP clients. So we're going to do that now. For those of you watching on YouTube, give us a like and follow. Thanks a lot and have a great week.